welcome to another episode of the Business of Coaching podcast. I'm very excited to have a special guest with us today, Coach John Gaglione. Coach Gags, I heard last weekend is your unofficial nickname. John is probably somebody I should have had on the podcast a long time ago. He was giving me a little bit of grief about it, but we've got him on, and really looking forward to this conversation. For those that aren't aware, John has been in the powerlifting industry for the business for over 2 decades now, a little over 2 decades.
Yeah.
Elite level powerlifter, elite level coach, and multi-gym business owner as well. And relative to this podcast, he's also been one of the early adopters of Turnkey Coach, and has actually, you may not know this, but you were hugely influential on a significant part of our product roadmap. In particular, when we started talking, I think it was like a year and a half ago or so, when I first did a demo call, you said, yeah, this looks great, but I need to have the ability to do group chat. And that we were nowhere near being able to do that, and ended up investing several months into adding that feature. So now you can manage community and channels and communicate with different groups within the app. So yeah, hugely influential in the product, and what I've been loving most recently is you are also a huge advocate of Turnkey Coach. So excited to have you on. Like we were talking about before the show, there's a million things that we could talk to you about, whether it's competing at the highest levels of powerlifting, Westside Barbell is your shirt you've got on, coaching Larry Wheels, running multiple gyms, all this kind of stuff. But I think what I'd like to really dig into is your experience going from predominantly an in-person coaching gym owner to somebody who's now more of a hybrid coach with, as far as I understand, intentions to move even more into remote coaching or asynchronous coaching while still maintaining your gym and still being an elite competitor. But, that's a bit of a journey. As I've talked to more coaches, there's, a buy-in to the idea of doing video feedback and using Turnkey Coach. But there's this point of friction that comes up where people aren't quite sure then how to start building their roster, how to start, moving their business model, or working with their clients in a little bit of a different format. So excited to have you on and talk more about your experience. So welcome, John, to the show. And maybe we could start with giving folks that might not know you your version of your John Gaglione elevator pitch, and then we can jump into your story with Turnkey Coach.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and it's been fun. And like I said, I think it's always cool to meet somebody. I've been following, Matt, Barbell Logic, and your kind of universe of strength coaches for a while. So it was great to meet you in person finally. I think at the Arnold of this year, and then we got to get some training in together, which is always fun.
That was the heaviest bench I've ever handed off.
Hand off PR. That's something, right? So
yeah, exactly. It was almost a rack pull PR for me too.
I got a little stubby arms, but no, I appreciate it. So no, that was good. I think that's important. So. Yeah, so I've been Coach Gaglione, been involved with powerlifting and strength coaching for over 19 years. I did my first meet in 2006. I kind of joke, I've been starting to kind of keep track of how old my INSER weightlifting belt is. My INSER weightlifting belt's turning 25 next year. Wow. So that's kind of my rule is that I only trust you if you're older than my current weightlifting belt. So
this I just pause real quickly because one thing that's changed in the last 20 years is like the availability of equipment. I can remember buying a belt 20 years ago was like a 6-month process. like,
Well,
I don't know if it was quite mail in the order at that. I mean, there was still
sure.
online.
Well, it's really funny. So some things haven't changed. Inzer is notoriously slow with customer service and things like that. But their products are amazing and they literally last a lifetime. So that some things have not changed, but the slowness of Inzer. But that being
that belt's probably priceless, right? I mean,
so a couple of things I'll continue on, but it's worth noting. So. I was heavily influenced early on. My middle school wrestling coach was a power lifter, and we did box squats, we did trap bar deadlifts. Some of it was kind of influenced. If you remember, like I don't know if it's bigger, stronger, faster, or bigger, faster, stronger, because I always get the movie and the training system mixed up. But that was kind of like how we trained. We did box squats, we did touch and go bench press and trap bar deadlifts and things of that nature. And that was kind of my like introduction to strength and conditioning, in particular for football and wrestling. And I think this is worth like noting because this is kind of like why and how I got into coaching. So I trained very hard. I was always kind of invested in the training. Since my middle school wrestling coach was a power lifter, I got a hold of some of the powerlifting. If you guys remember Powerlifting USA magazine, Louis Simmons articles were in there. I ended up kind of getting some tapes from Westside Barbell, VHS tapes. I still have them at my parents' house, which is cool if you guys remember what a VHS tape was. And I just started kind of like learning about training early on. I was always kind of invested in that. But what ended up kind of letting me dive more into coaching, I was a wrestling captain, all that. And then I was never like the most athletic kid. I always tell people like, if you guys know anything about like power and stuff, I never cracked a 20-inch vertical. So like in terms of like athleticism, power, speed, and things like that, that was never my forte, but I always enjoyed seeing my numbers increase in the weight room. I ended up kind of tearing my hamstring my first football practice my senior year, and I ended up kind of wrestling my senior year on essentially one leg, which made it very challenging, but I still won 30 matches. I still did pretty well. I ended up losing in double overtime my last match, and if I had won that match, I would have achieved my goal to be an all-county or a sectional wrestler. So I was so close, and I knew that if I was healthy and if I maybe trained a better way, it wasn't due to lack of effort. And that's what kind of drove me kind of mad to learn about strength and conditioning. I started visiting coaches like Eric Cressy and Mike Boyle. I made my first trip to Westside in 2011, 2010. And then fast forward to kind of 2017, I spent a full week. I was able to kind of get my gym up and running and kind of leave it like as is. I had a couple of people working for me at the time that were instrumental, and I spent a week long, I call it my Westside pilgrimage, and that was just like a little bit of a backstory of kind of why I got into coaching. And as far as how I got into powerlifting, a lot of my wrestlers, so kind of rewind again, a lot of my wrestlers over between like 2006 and 2010, a lot of those wrestlers, started to kind of graduate high school and graduate college. We had a couple of collegiate wrestlers that did really well. We had a couple of guys go to Harvard and Princeton and did great, a couple of state champions, NCAA, like Division I qualifiers. But they needed kind of something to train for. And at the time I was competing in powerlifting for a couple of years, and I was like, well, why don't you do this meet with me? And that was kind of like how the team was born. And then I always joke that I started doing powerlifting before it was cool. And, here we are now. It's a big part of our business, and whether it be recreational. So that's a little bit, it wasn't quite an elevator pitch, but I thought it was maybe an interesting backstory for kind of how I got into this crazy field.
That's very cool. I appreciate that. I always think it's kind of interesting to hear where people's origin stories come from. They're definitely within the strength world now. There's seems like there's kind of two main tracks of the people that are in the game. One kind of comes up through West Side and a little bit more kind of powerlifting purist, if you will. And then there's kind of this second generation, sort of in parallel, but a little bit after, that came up more through the CrossFit kind of path. Like they got bit by the barbell bug through CrossFit, and then maybe they did starting strength, or maybe they did weightlifting, and now they're kind of out there running a gym. But definitely, especially on the East Coast, and the Underground Strength Con and Joe and Joe Riggio and Zach, those guys, and yourself, obviously, very much West Side influence. There's a poster of Louis in the background going on. But so tell me a little bit about owning a gym. You touched on it there in 2017. You started it up. What was that like for you growing the gym? What was the square footage? What kind of business model did you run? How many clients did you have? What did that look like?
Yeah, so just to kind of backtrack a little bit. So 2017 was kind of like when I started having like more employees. We had a lot of success. Larry Wheels was kind of in his heyday. So I opened up the company in 2011. Reluctantly, so yeah, it'd be my 15-year anniversary. So I never really planned on owning my own company. I always say like I wear my coach hat first, and like entrepreneur is like down on the list, even for better or for worse, but that's just kind of how I'm wired.
True for, I think, a lot of coaches.
I'm definitely
stuff is like they have to figure out how to build the business after they have the clients.
Yeah, and we can definitely kind of talk about that. I think it's important to recognize like how you're wired, and then maybe like because if one thing that I would advise people that are owning a brick and mortar, I think your first hire should be more of an administrative, or if you're Tom Brady in your business, you need Bill Belichick to kind of oversee things, if that's a football analogy, but not to say I'm as good as Tom Brady, but that's kind of like how I'm more of kind of the person on the field doing the thing. That's kind of how I'm wired in terms of the in-person stuff. So, and again, this is just for context and things like that. So I was working for somebody as a personal trainer. So back in that kind of 2010, so I graduated college in 2008, and then I was. A lot of people may or may not know. My master's is in special education, and I also got like a certification. So that's kind of my background. I was a school teacher. I taught kids with autism, emotionally disturbed, different disabilities. And I do think that was also a very unique opportunity for me to like just learn how other people learn. And I think that gives me a unique kind of teaching methods and stuff like that. But so I was teaching, I was coaching wrestling, coaching football, personal trainer. It was quite a lot on my plate. And also I started to get very heavy at the time. I was super heavyweight powerlifter. So I at some point I had to kind of cut out coaching, which was hard in terms of like wrestling was my first love. So I started focusing more on the training side of things. And then in 2011, so basically like when I was working for this boutique personal training studio in Massapequa. And one of the things that we kind of joke about, we say like, if you dated a girl from Massapequa as a Massapequa princess, and it was just kind of a more hoity-toity, kind of high-end kind of gym, and I was kind of the strength guy in that gym. I like brought in like my elite. I still have some of this stuff is still in our gym in New York. I brought in my safety squat bar. I brought in my chains. I brought in my box squat, and I trained my wrestlers in the corner. And people were like, "What the heck are these guys doing?" But our wrestlers were awesome. They became all county champions, state champions. And but I just always felt like we didn't really fit in that space. And I had an opportunity. More wrestling clubs started to kind of pop up on Long Island, and this is kind of also how I kind of met Zach and stuff like that too, because he was kind of in that world, and I was kind of watching what he was doing. He was doing really well in the New Jersey area, which was kind of like right next door to us. So I got an opportunity. So there's if anyone knows wrestling on Long Island, Vogar. And Vogar was a two-time world champion. He was bronze medalist in the Olympics, and I think he was fourth. So very highly decorated wrestler. If you know anything about names from overseas, he's straight off the boat from Russia. He started up a wrestling club, kind of the American dream kind of thing. And if you also know anything about wrestling, you know that you never mess with anyone with a big cauliflower ear. So this guy, 130 pounds soaking wet, but I mean, he could like throw you like around like a rag doll. So I had an opportunity just to kind of, I was just talking with Vogar. I was kind of doing clinics at the time. I was doing, teaching. I was going around just kind of trying to get our name out there. And Vogar's like, if you want to like rent this space, these are the off hours. You could train people here. And I said, and around that same time, in 2011, actually, I'm sorry, 2010. So like the year before, I had met Zach Evanesh and I did his underground strength certification. And he had sourced some articles, some blog posts. A lot of us did blog posts back. That's like a whole other thing. So we wrote blogs, articles back in the day. Now people can't read as well. They have to watch a 30-second clip. But
gotta have TikTok.
But anyway, so Zach was kind of impressed with some of my writings. He was impressed with my effort, and he kind of like really pushed me to like he's like, why don't you think about opening up your own gym? And I never really thought about it. So number one, so he gave me the confidence that I could do it. And number two, I kind of felt like what I wanted to create and where I wanted to work did not exist. This strength type of gym did not exist. So I felt like there was a need for this. There wasn't people doing box squats with chains. There wasn't people doing, strongman type training for conditioning, and we did pull-ups with chains, and so it was very powerlifting influenced, but there was still like different, special strengths. And if you're familiar with Westside Barbell, so like we use kind of a lot of powerlifting as a means to develop maximal strength and also maximal speed. And in the case of wrestlers, we also kind of would work on their endurance. So I had this opportunity, and then, that's kind of how Gaglione Strength got started. And then we were only there in Syosset at Vogar on a wrestling club for about a year. And then we kind of moved into where we are now. We've moved around
How many athletes did you have?
Yeah, it's a good question. It might have been like 15 or 20 like wrestlers that I kind of worked with. So again, remember, this is like part-time. So I would, I was a teacher in the morning. I would coach wrestling at night. And then like in the evening, I would kind of work with a bunch of groups. And the groups might be anywhere from 4 to 6 people at a time. And that has not changed. That's kind of how we train our powerlifters. We'll kind of get into that. But we always had a competitive environment. We would have like a max effort day. We'd have a day that was more dedicated towards, power and athleticism. And then during the season, we would kind of focus a little bit more on maintaining strength and kind of using a little bit more exercises that were lower systemic stress. And sometimes we'd have to get creative. Sometimes we'd have kids that would come in and cast, and we'd have to kind of, train one arm at a time. And, we've seen it all. Sometimes we did more single leg training, depending on how they were feeling. But we were kind of in a little bit of we had 2 Elite FTS power racks in a corner. And which is really funny, actually. Vogar's Honors Wrestling Club is like, I believe it's still there, is like a stone's throw away from Bev Francis Powerhouse Gym, which is a very famous bodybuilding gym, so a lot of times when we were getting shipments from Elite FTS from our Texas, a lot of times Bev Francis would get our order by mistake, which was kind of funny. So we had this like little hole in the wall strength conditioning facility inside Vogar's club. But yeah, we had like 2 power racks in the corner. We had a couple of horse stall mats. We had some kettlebells, some sandbags. And then like during off hours, we also had the open mats. So we would do gymnastics, we would do rope climbs, we would do calisthenics. We would do kind of stretching and conditioning there. But as far as our strength area was probably only a couple hundred square feet. It was like essentially kind of very similar to the Joe DeFranco storage closet type deal. And we got we had 2 power racks and a couple of free weights, and we developed, county and state champions in Long Island. And that's kind of like, that was the start of, Gaglione Strength in 2011. And then, we went since.
What was the tipping point to you feeling like you needed your own space? Just capacity?
Yeah, part of it was capacity. Part of it was just like we only had so many hours to work with, because like the wrestling club, when the wrestling club was in session, we really couldn't it wouldn't have been like safe to like have like someone squatting 500 pounds and then like Johnny's like, doing like a throw like in the corner. It just didn't really make a lot of sense. And then, so we kind of outgrew that space in about a year. And like I was kind of saying before as well, we started to kind of get like some pretty serious power lifters training with us. So one of my training partners, I really want to get him on a podcast because he's like kind of off the grid. So Dom Minichi and the Minichi family was really pivotal, because it's 5 brothers, and I kind of, in some way, either I was kind of on teams with them, or I kind of trained as brothers, but all of them like either were very high level wrestlers, football players, they were just super athletes, all of them, and they were part of our training program. And Big Dom was my training partner from over the years. And Big Dom, he is a big guy. He's probably over 6 feet tall. He competed anywhere from like the 275s to super heavyweight. And just to kind of tell you what kind of... So Dom had the home run record for our high school Plainedge. I believe it still holds to this day for a single season. And Dom's first at-bat in college was a home run, and he was also had a tryout with the Boston Red Sox. So and for a bigger guy, so like when you have power and you have size, then you have this like unbelievable potential for strength. So Big Dom actually ended up, was our first 2,000 pound raw total. And at the time, again, someone could fact check me, when if you guys remember Michael Song, this is before open powerlifting. If you made it on Michael Song's list, that was a curated list for the top 20 all time. And Michael Song also had a 2,000 pound raw total Hall of Fame. And I believe it was under 200 people at the time to hit that milestone. And Dom was our first kind of teammate to do so. He was an 800 plus squatter at the time. And I remember, I think he pulled like 765 to seal the deal, to hit 2,000 on the nose. And he went on to be one of the first and only men to squat 900 pounds in just a pair of knee sleeves. So anyways, that was just kind of like early iterations of our powerlifting team. And then one of our other training partners was Mark Greenstein. And I just want to share with you guys, because a lot of people know me but from like Larry Wheels and stuff, but there was a lot of other people like instrumental. I think it's important for the story. So Mark Greenstein was also someone we played football with, and he was from Plainedge, New York. Mark Greenstein was a CrossFitter, and he was very good at the weightlifting part. So he's like, I want to try this powerlifting thing. So I believe Mark's first like total was either 1,500 or 1,600 pounds. Like it was like very good. Like, and he was like a lean 220. So anyways, Mark went on to be our first athlete to get on Michael Song's list for the top 20 all time. At the time, he was 5th in the world at 198. It's still a great total to this day. He totaled 1825 at 198 and 1900 at 220. And what's kind of notable about like myself, Dom, we had a guy, Richie Rizzo, who was like getting close to like a 700 pound deadlift, around like 170. This was like very early powerlifting days, so these numbers were not like happening. And we were all from the same town. We were all from Plainedge, New York, North Massapequa. So it felt like very, not to the same scale as Louis, but very, like, because a lot of Louis' early elite lifters, they were all from Columbus. And so I was trying to kind of build something similar in Long Island. And, and then like kind of Larry Wheels kind of came on the scene. And that was one of the reasons why he kind of trusted me, because we had guys like Dom and Mark that I already kind of had a track record. This is like 2012 to 2014. Like this is still like pretty, like raw lifting was just kind of getting going. And then we had the kind of the boom, I think, in 2015. So we were kind of like on the front lines of like really kind of developing. And, I wish I had my brain now back then, because I think we could have even been better. But that was kind of like how we kind of got into powerlifting, and we kind of started going to, if you guys remember, meets like Raw Unity was a big one. We started going to the Arnold, for many years. And so that kind of like led to our success, and then kind of one thing led to another. And here we are. I'm kind of, been, one of the first people to kind of have like a powerlifting kind of focused gym. And the main reason was just like it didn't really exist. We before then, a lot of powerlifters would kind of find the corner of a commercial gym and hope that they didn't get kicked out, and they would kind of bring their own equipment in, and that's kind of like what you did. Now people are spoiled; they have their kilo plates, they have. Don't get me started, but anyway. So if there's any other, that's kind of like how we got started, and
Gotcha.
Those were like the early days, and our first kind of iteration of Farmingdale was maybe like 1,500 square feet, so pretty small. We stuffed more, and then eventually we kind of expanded over the years, and then we kind of actually kind of just consolidated again, so it kind of feels. And I kind of like the box gym where it's kind of small and like you're kind of on top of each other, and if it creates a different type of energy when you're all like under the same rack. We always had a team, and we can kind of talk about that. Our training always kind of featured people training with groups. And we can kind of talk, and even with our kind of coaching style and how we program, we kind of keep that in mind. So anyways, that was just a little bit of a longer context, but hopefully people get some enjoyment out of that story.
Again, like I said at the beginning, there's a million things we could talk about, but I think that is a really helpful context. A lot of people are, everything seems to be moving, or the expectation is to move so fast now. And I think an important thing about that story is, you're talking about something that started, again, 20 years ago, but really the business side is now 15 years.
15, yeah.
And the amount of hours and years of effort that you put into building those relationships, growing the business, expanding, one thing I think is a common thread that people overlook often is that you started it as effectively a side hustle. I don't know, people weren't calling it a side hustle then, but it was like you were doing it as a maybe even more of a passion project because there was a need, and then only expanding when there was another need, to create something that didn't exist. And along the way, building a lot of meaningful relationships and reputation that took years to forge. And I think that sometimes, I don't know if it's the TikTokification of life or whatever, but there's this expectation that you can just start up a business and, now you've got 100 clients or something. And it's like, well, you started with 4 to 6 wrestlers at a time, a couple hours a week, and built very, very gradually and incrementally from there. I think that's an important message is if people are out there, it's a grind, it's not easy to just spin up a business.
Absolutely.
So that gets you. So that 1,500 square foot space, and then I think you said at one point you had two of those effectively, or
so basically, I had to kind of look at. So another kind of pivotal milestone was 2014 is when I stopped teaching. I actually, it's kind of cliche, whatever. So I don't know if you are familiar maybe with Andy Frisella and his podcast. So at the time, I think he's gone through different iterations of his podcast, but at the time it was the MF CEO project. And I remember hearing a story about, he talked about, and I think this is again pertinent for, messaging and mindset and stuff, but he talked about you could be like a lighthouse or a tugboat. And this is something I even remind myself. So it inspired me so much, I actually got a tattoo to kind of commemorate the moment where I decided to stop teaching and just go all into coaching. And I haven't looked back since. So anyways, the story kind of, or the premise goes is that, if there's kind of a nasty storm or whatever, a lighthouse or a tugboat does effectively the same thing. They're trying to get ships to come to shore safely. The difference is a tugboat is actively kind of going out, trying to get the ship to come with them and essentially kind of forcing the situation, going to use a lot of gasoline parts, things of that nature. Whereas a lighthouse kind of just shines its light and stands its ground. And the ship may come, the ship may not. So I think it's just really fitting. And it's, in terms of just kind of staying true to your message, what you're going to do. And then the other kind of part of the tattoo I got was, the very, cliche, kind of burn the boats kind of thing. So I have kind of, there's two sides to the tattoo. But the whole kind of lighthouse technology, the whole lighthouse kind of analogy is just that if you have something that you're really passionate about, or a message that you are trying to, I always talk about spreading the message of strength and what does that mean? So one of the kind of things that I've been trying to really promote is kind of this the team culture, this team camaraderie, and kind of training with people in person. As much as you can, and even if you can't all the time, being part of a community. And that was something we kind of talked about with the group chat and stuff like that. So these are just some things I really kind of believed in, and I really felt like there was a need for this. And, if you believe, in the man upstairs or whatever, I just really feel like I was put on this earth to help people get strong and kind of do that in a team setting. So that 2014, it was a big, I sacrificed a steady paycheck, health insurance, all this stuff. But I really feel like this is my life's mission to do this. So over that time, around the same time, we ended up kind of getting we moved over a few doors down in the same building, and we got a second garage door bay, essentially doubling the size of the business. And then around that time, one of my most famous videos is over 1 million views, is Stan Efforting and Larry Wheels or having a squat battle. And, so that was really prime. And even just for raw lifting, again, I don't want to take credit for this, whatever, but those cast of characters and those people really kind of, I think, drew a lot of, in addition to CrossFit, but those, because they looked like bodybuilders. They are bodybuilders too, but that really, I think that really kind of garnered a lot of attention for powerlifting and just the barbell in general. And we were kind of on the front lines of that, I think, like I said, and I think it was a really cool time to be part of powerlifting. And I feel like there's so many things that I feel are missing in kind of this new culture. And I think a big part of it is how people kind of train together. And that was kind of the main thing that I always wanted to, and that's what kind of separates our gym is that if there's a kind of a group of, let's say there's 15 people that come to our gym now on a Sunday for a squat session, there's going to be maybe 5 people in a rack, and there's going to be another 5 to 6 people in each monolift, and they're going to kind of go through, and when it's your turn, even our members essentially are kind of like surrogate like coaches or team captains. They're going to watch your depth. They're going to make sure you're pausing your benches. They're going to make sure your deadlifts are locked out. It's not just, and you will also get the support as well. But that's just really rare to see. So even though they are getting kind of coached by me, and again, if I'm going too fast or whatever, but essentially we can kind of get into when I moved to Delaware in 2023, I was kind of I got married last year, and having a system like Turnkey Coach has really been instrumental because I wanted to kind of make sure that kind of stayed intact, and they would still get like a similar experience without me kind of being there. So I know that so I don't know if that was too fast or we left some stuff out, but that's kind of where we are. Kind of.
So and the
today.
original gym is still back in
yep.
Long Island.
I call it Strong Island, New York.
And how far is that from where you live now? Like time?
Depending on what time of day, it could be anywhere from like 3.5 hours to like 5.5 hours, which is crazy. But on average, like 4 hours, I would say like on average 4.5 hours.
And how many lifters are in that gym?
Yeah, it kind of fluctuates, but I'd say like anywhere between 50 to 60 ish. Like kind of, it's always, I'd say like there were times where we had like 100 people, and I would say out of those like 100 people, like maybe half like competed in powerlifting in some fashion. We still have a couple of athletes. I have a kid, Devin Downs, who he's been doing great. And I'm really happy like someone like that is still like, so I kind of taught him a lot, and I still stay in touch with the dad and him, and he's a multiple time state champion. He's going to Maryland next year. So there are some people that kind of will like, he kind of recognized like strength is really important for my sport. I'm going to do my strength training here. And then he does his skill training, kind of that 2-factor model, if you will. Kind of it does actually work if you kind of do it right. But anyways, so yeah, majority of people are kind of training more for like, most people will kind of come to us because they want to learn how to squat, bench, and deadlift, but they want to do so in a group setting. So yeah, it's still going strong in Farmingdale.
So, and then this new space is still open as well, or?
Yeah, so we have the original location is in Farmingdale, New York, and then my second location, I think it's like a little over 2 years old. I need to like I have too many anniversaries and too many. But what's really this is a kind of I wish my wife were here to kind of hear this because she would get a laugh out of it. But so we expanded our Delaware location like within the same month as like within the same like week of like our wedding. So it was like we were literally preparing for our wedding and also like moving like horse stall mats and like yeah, so I know that's how committed we are to powerlifting, guys. but it's so like 2024 was pretty pivotal in like, we expanded the Delaware location, so now we can kind of run more like bigger meets out of there. We were starting to actually build up a crew there, which is really exciting. We have some elite level lifters that are kind of training at our gym in Milton, and we also have people in their 60s and 70s that do powerlifting, which is really cool. Our daughter's been competing. She's 10. She's got a couple of state records for her age group. And my wife, and maybe also been kind of getting into strict curl and stuff. But yes, we have the second locations in Milton, which is kind of our hometown. And basically kind of what I do, I mean, kind of get into more specifics. I try to, besides Tuesday nights, so Sundays and Tuesdays are kind of like our crew training times. Sundays still like our squat day here. That hasn't changed. And then Tuesday nights is kind of like a bench night. But outside of that, I just do mostly personal training in the morning. And I kind of made the decision, I'm just not going to take appointments at night. I want to kind of be there for our kids. I want to have some family time. And that's where kind of like doing the hybrid approach and doing more online coaching kind of comes in terms of like, being able to be efficient time-wise, and also just making sure the business is profitable. And because the tricky thing about personal training and just kind of owning a gym is that you could literally be, you're busy in the morning, you're busy in the evening, and it's not really like a great work-life balance, especially if you have kids. And you want to be like kind of present. And I'm still kind of working the kinks out. I'm certainly not perfect, but having this like kind of hybrid model, it certainly helped us kind of keep things going in New York, so I can kind of communicate and collaborate and have like good relationships with my old training partners and some of our old clients, but also the in-person people. So a lot of people, like, they might only come in a few times a week, maybe once, twice, or 3 times a week, but then they might go to like a 24-hour gym. And we have some good relationship. They might go to a 24-hour gym to do their like ancillary training or training where they don't need a spotter and stuff. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds there. And like, it's like, do I need to like be over your shoulder when you're doing tricep extensions or hamstring curls? Like maybe not. Right. At least when you're like, once you kind of get going, but if you're going for like a PR, like triple, or you're getting ready for a meet, like having that like hands-on like coaching and having someone give you commands and stuff like that. And I think that's like really important, especially if you want to like kind of excel in competing. There's something about kind of practicing how you play and having that kind of in-person environment to kind of like learn those skills. And, so that's kind of how we do it.
Lessons learned or advice for somebody who's asking the question, or, because I talk to a lot of people, a lot of coaches who are trying to do what you have done, but they're a little uncertain or I don't know if afraid is the right word, but there's just a lot of resistance to the idea of transitioning somebody who's used to that super personal environment that you're talking about, that team environment. How do you move clients to something where there's maybe less touch points or the touch points are online?
Well, I think that there's definitely friction, and there was certainly friction with me. Like, I know there was probably like, I think I was starting and then I stopped and then I started again, and I kind of like finally, and part of the reason for that, and full transparency, is I was using another software before. So it was like, it wasn't even just my friction, it was like also the friction of like everyone else. So now they have to like learn a new thing, and people are creatures of habit. But anyways, so the first thing I would just say is if people are trying to transition to using some sort of software, and we were kind of talking offline, I do believe that Turnkey Coach is not just an online coaching tool, it's a coaching tool. And I'll kind of explain what I mean by that. So one of the things that's been super helpful for me for like my personal training clients in Delaware specifically, I have their plan like ready to go. And they also have a copy of it, so they kind of know like what they're. So it helps them kind of, and then I can just focus on. So let's say like we have a couple of girls that they're getting ready for their first meet. We have a festive face-off contest that's coming up soon, and they were, I think, doing like heavy doubles and singles on bench press, and then also some deadlifting they were doing today. This girl's coming in like twice a week, so she kind of knows like I'm going to be bench pressing. This is kind of my target weight of the day, or this is my target like RPE, reps in reserve, percentage, whatever it is. And then that's kind of done. It's like done for you. The client knows what their expectation is. You kind of know it's there. I don't have to like fumble through a notebook or whatever. Or they have a record of it. And then instead of like having, it's like, what did you do last time? And I happen to be kind of like a weird like numbers programming wizard type person where I remember a lot of people's PRs, but it's nice to have something that's automatically tracking that for you, right?
Right.
So she could kind of see. So she actually, I think, hit a PR. This is like a newer athlete. She like did her first like I think 80-pound bench press today, right? So she could see that she hit a PR, and like that's great, and good job, and and then she just she's approaching her first 200-pound deadlift. So like these are kind of more novice lifters, but. So that's kind of already, it's like one less thing I have to worry about, and I could just focus on coaching up the technique, building a relationship with the person. How are you feeling today? And I could focus on all the coaching aspects of things outside of the program. The program is kind of taken care of already, like on the front end, and then I can kind of focus on being present. What does this person actually need to be successful today? And I think that's kind of where having that software can be super helpful for people that are working with someone in person. And she also happens to also have her own home gym. So like she's tracking her work when she's with me, and then I can give her like kind of homework and other like workouts to do that maybe are less coaching intensive, less spotting intensive, all those sorts of things. But what I would say in terms of people getting started is like if someone's like coming to you like once, twice, or 3 times a week, just have them start kind of tracking their workouts there and even uploading their top set. Because even like I can kind of give someone feedback, let's say like on her on the bench press, trying to get someone to actually pause, get that bar to fixate. I can kind of give them that feedback in person. But then, hey, why don't you upload your video, and I'll give you like a little voiceover, so just so they can get kind of comfortable using the system. And now what's really nice about that is like they don't have to remember what my cues were for them.
Right.
I can give them a little note. They can kind of refer. So the next session, let's say like squat depths, like a big thing, right? It's like, okay, this was really good. You did a really good job of like keeping pressure in your feet. You did a really good job of kind of bracing it with your upper back and your trunk. But I need you to kind of get a little bit lower. One way you can get a little bit lower, try to spread your groin apart or spread your knee, whatever the cue is, right? And I can kind of give them that cue, and then they can kind of refer to that in like their next session. Or I might even add them a note like, hey, for the next session, I could add them a note. Remember, we're going to really focus on a good pause. We're going to really stop the bar this time. Or we got to get an inch, whatever it is. I can kind of actually physically give them a note so they can kind of go into the next session. And that makes your coaching and your communication more effective. They don't have to remember it, right? So those are just a few examples where it's like just like getting them in the habit of like tracking, and then like I kind of mentioned before the call, like I've been traveling a lot. I was at Underground Strength Con. I was coaching in Virginia. So if they're doing a workout on their own, now they like know how to use the system. I don't need to hold their hand for like that particular workout, and they get still kind of, I don't have to like potentially like not get paid for that session or whatever. They can kind of just continue on their program, because that's a big thing too. Like, can you ever take a vacation? Can you ever like, so that's been a big thing for me is I have a couple of people that will like open the gym for me or whatever. And then it's like, hey, like if I'm going to, like I have a lot of travel coming up, if I'm going to the Arnold or whatever, hey, Chris is going to open up the gym. You have your program and turnkey coach. And, maybe I'll make it a little bit easier if I'm not, whatever it is, I might adjust it a little bit, but they like kind of know how to use it and then they can kind of go there. So it starts to kind of unlock all these other possibilities. I could actually go on vacation. I could actually, I can do like a continuing because that's like, sometimes like with these CECs, you want to learn, you want to network. It's like, you can't, it's like, and then you're losing out on money or whatever. So I try to do like most of my in-person work like Monday through Thursday. And then I kind of try to keep the evenings and weekends open so I can travel, I can do the networking, I can. And then, something like our Sundays, it's a kind of our group sessions. One of the more veteran people, because I also happen to work with like other trainers. So like they might like also be a trainer themselves. So, hey, like they're going to kind of open up the gym for me. And obviously there's other ways to do this. You can have 24-hour access and stuff like that, whatever you want to do. But the point is that the training doesn't get uninterrupted, but you're training them up to that point. So like when they're ready to kind of like, do some of their training on their own, they're comfortable with the system. They're still getting the value in it. And then we haven't even kind of touched on like, the audio messages and the video feedback and stuff like that. But I think in terms of it allows you to start to actually focus on the coaching, the cueing, the personal connection, and then the programming, the data, because the data collection can be like, super time consuming. And then you have to do all these formulas and it's like, you have to calculate the percentages or whatever. It's like, is that a PR? Let me go to my like notebook. So like all that stuff is like kind of done for you. So you're saving so much like kind of time on the back end. So the main thing is just taking a little bit more time to get them comfortable with the system. And I think it's only going to enhance what you do in person. So I don't know I know there's like a lot there, but if there's any other follow-up questions.
So much good stuff. I had not even thought about, well, I mean, what's interesting about your situation is that you did both a rip the Band-Aid off situation because you literally physically moved away from the other gym. Yes. So for that crew, it's sort of like, hey, this is the only way to keep working with them, which is one way folks can do it, but that's a lot of risk, I would imagine. Plus, it sounds like you also had enough community to have some stickiness for the clients. It's not like you were just like a solo coach that moved away.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll just pause and you can keep going is just like, so like while I was kind of, engaged and dating my now wife, I was kind of bouncing back and forth, which again was not really, but essentially like what I would kind of do is I would spend like the weekends in Delaware. I'd spend like Monday through, Wednesday or Monday through Thursday. And so I kind of slowly kind of phased myself out. So like, I was like, okay.
It wasn't just one day.
Yeah. It wasn't like, I'm moving to Delaware. So it was like a process. And then like, and there was definitely some like drop off where like, it's not the same or whatever, but now it's like, people kind of know the expectation. This is kind of like how it is. And what is also really cool is when we do an in-person event or like I'm hosting we can kind of get into the meets, because I think that's a critical part of what we do. Like when I get to like coach like these people in person, like that's a really special moment. Like I have a guy that's coming up from Georgia to compete at our meet in Delaware, and I've worked with him in person a few times. Like he did like a national event a few years ago in Atlanta, and so like people like want to be like part of like the in-person events, and then it's like those people may only do it a few times a year, but for like our New York crew, it's like when it's like game day, and I actually get to like kind of coach them in person. That's a really cool opportunity, and that really makes it kind of special for like that particular day too. So if there's anything else that you want to add, I think, but that's kind of how we do things.
It's making. What you mentioned when we were at Underground Strength Con, you said, I kind of wish you guys had just actually said up front that this takes time.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if somebody comes up to you and says, I want to deadlift 700 pounds.
Yep.
You're not going to tell them it's easy. This is going to take months, if not years, depending on who they are. And the same thing I'm hearing in your story is true for how you've built your business model out, that and I wonder if it's because of your education background that you kind of think through that problem in a little bit of a different way, because what you just described is, starting from day one when it's not a need, but you're teaching people how to use the app, what this relationship is like, even though you're in person. It's an add-on to your in-person coaching that then becomes an enabler months down the road. Like all of a sudden, now you've opened up this possibility, and instead of it being like, okay, now we're going to do all of our training, I'm going to teach you how to do it. You have to change your workflow because now you got to start recording your sets, and it's this new thing. What you've just described is now this very seamless transition from it just being part of the coach-client relationship on day one, that unlocks doors for you in the future, where now you can travel, now you can take a vacation, now maybe they can train in another gym, they can do their accessories, they can do their home gym. It's just like all of that value that I try to pitch from day one that doesn't quite make sense to somebody until they've gone through that. I think that's just a really helpful story to understand how you help. I
think
transition
for sure. I think you got to view it like it's an investment, right? So if you have like a Roth IRA or something like that, it's like you kind of set this thing away and then you don't see it, and then eventually, I kind of collected this interest or whatever. So one of the things that was kind of, anytime you're making a big change, because especially for the New York people, and it was a little bit, there was some kind of pushback, whatever. But now it's just like, this is better. This is how we do it, and this is what and it's just like, now it's like kind of just part of the process. And listen, the people that like kind of are like on board, they get better results. So it's just like, if you want to get better results, you track your workouts, and like, just like with, your food, it's like if you want to have measurable results, you can't manage what you can't measure and all these things. So like there's going to be some people, and I think that if you could just be upfront with people and be like, hey, and it's like, if you don't want to do this, it's like anything else. If you don't want to do this, like I can't guarantee the results, but this is like the benefit of it. And then if you can kind of, just eventually make, it's just like with diet and stuff too. Like I hate tracking my food and stuff, but I know that when I weigh my food and when I track my meals and if I eat the same thing every day, it's like, it's weird. The scale will go down when like, it's like, so it's just part of it. So that's just like one thing. I think it's, but I think that if you understand, like the investment will pay off. And if you kind of just start it from like, if I was starting from scratch, like this is just like what it would be. So, if you're in that position, I would say take advantage of it. It's just like one more, if you do it on the front end, it'll be like, if you have to kind of transition all these people. And then, but if you are in a position where you would need to transition, to be like, hey, it might take a 2 or 3 months, but then like months 4 and 5, man, because what I'm able to do now, I'm gaining time back, and like you really can't put it as a business owner, as a family man, you can't like put price tag on it. And I'm still busier than I'd like to be, but I just know that I probably wouldn't be able to do the trips. I probably wouldn't be able to do the networking events. I probably wouldn't be able to like our daughter was like in a play and stuff like that. It's like I don't feel like the business is still going when I'm like at these things, which is good. And even like I mentioned, I was just in Virginia And it's not as good as having my computer and being in like a private room and stuff like that. But I'm able to communicate with people on my phone. I'm able to check in with them. A lot of times, what I'll do, because I'm trying to like lose some weight right now. If it's audio messages and stuff, I might be like, if I'm doing my steps on a treadmill, I'll just be kind of checking my messages. I'm kind of just knocking out two birds with one stone. And I'm just doing that, and that's kind of like what I do. And I think that if you can kind of learn to be efficient like that. And like I said, it doesn't matter like where you are. You could still build a relationship with these people. You could still communicate with these people and provide value. And one of the benefits of something like group chat, we can, if I am, hey, like my wife's competing this weekend. Let's wish her luck. All these sorts of things. So there's like that's like kind of something they can kind of get on board with. But also like, hey, also. If maybe you're not going to get your video check-in like during this weekend or whatever because like it's their turn now, and then it's going to be their turn like later. So I try to like, even with the online stuff, I try to understand like there is give and take with this. And sometimes it's like, hey, if your teammate is competing now, like I'm going to put a little bit more attention on them and put a little bit more effort. And then like when it's your off season or whatever, and that stuff's important too. But I think in terms of if you are trying to climb the ranks as a competitive lifter, you're going for PRs, which a lot of us are. That's kind of how I like am wired in terms of like giving my attention to the people that kind of, I don't know if deserve is the right word, but it's kind of just like, okay, like the training mistakes, the feedback is going to have like a greater like impact on their success during this like time frame. So I like to put a little bit more effort to those people, if that makes sense. And then if there's something that's a little bit like less critical. So, it's like one of those things where I try to communicate that ahead of time. Some people get on board with it. Some people don't. But because everything is kind of goes back to, if the culture is kind of like around this kind of team mindset, together everyone achieves more, all that your crew mindset, whatever it is, and you start to attract those people, I think then like people kind of understand like what you're all about. So
this might sound too nerdy, or you were kind of making fun of me about my trust equation presentation. I like to nerd out a little bit, but like what it sounds like to me is that it enables you to put more of a premium on your time, and then be more strategic about where you want to put your time, because you're not stuck having to be physically in the gym, on the floor, coaching, but for there to be value added to your client experience. So you can be on the gym floor if you want. Or you can be there on certain times of the day and maybe other times not, or maybe you want to go to an event, or you want to, bring people together for in person, or spend a little bit more time here or there, but you're freed up from the gym, not because you want to get completely away from the gym, but because you don't have to be there all the time.
Correct.
You can pick and choose where you're going to get the most return on your invested time.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to say too, and this isn't to toot my own horn, whatever, but I think this is something that like I was talking this with Matt at some point. I think it might have been you too, but like, so one thing, like I don't charge people for like meat handling, right? Mm-hmm. It's just kind of factored in. We kind of expect. So this is just something when we have if you're part of our powerlifting team, like for our brick and mortar gyms, kind of the expectation is like when it's your turn, the team's going to help you. And then when it's not your turn, like we kind of expect you to kind of chip in and return, whether that's spotting, loading, scorekeeping, whatever else.
Right.
I have elite totals in 5 weight classes. I've coached all-time record holders. I've spotted all-time records. I've been, in this almost 2 decades. It's like, what would I charge per hour to like be at an event? Like there's no number that would make sense, right? So to me, like that's like
classic problem.
It's like it would be a stupid number, right? So
on the flip side of that, by the way, because I've also seen this where a coach will get burned out because all they're doing is they're spending every Saturday at meets,
right.
Because they take the whole team and it's this huge thing.
Yeah. So I kind of, and it's listen, it's still exhausting and stuff, but I will say, like, for me, having the wrestling background, whatever, man, I like live for that, man. It's like, like we had a couple of our members, win championship belts at the strict curl meet, and like, coaching someone like just a quick example, like where it's like we had like a masters lifter who's 70 years old. He just curled 132 pounds, broke a world record. I was like tearing, you know, there he was super, like he didn't know, he's like a farm guy and does concrete from, you know, Milton, Delaware. And he's like, I think I want to try the strict curl thing. And now he's like, you know, breaking records and he's awesome. Doing great. And then also like we have people like a Larry Wheels who I have to figure out the exact combination to break the all-time record. You know, he breaks Eric Lillibridge's record at the Arnold. He beat Dennis Cornelius head-to-head on the last deadlift. He pulled 400 kilos for the win to podium at the current U.S. Open. Like those are like magical moments that it's like it's only for like a few seconds, but man, it's like, and then, but it's months and months culminating to that. Like I got to put the right number on the bar for this person to be successful. And it's like, and it's like, you know, so to me, like, I don't like, that's exciting for me. And that's like kind of very interesting for me, whether it's the 70-year-old that's going for a PR or, you know, someone that's going for like, or like a Mark Greenstein, right? Like, it's like, you know, this is like one of your friends from like your football days who now he's like becoming one of the best lifters in the world. And like, that's like, and I think that where like, so going back to what I was saying is like, our system has been proven to work for like all these people. So like the system works and it's like, it's really what you kind of put into it. So I always like to use this analogy. So I consider myself like a GPS, and that's what so at the end of the day, you are on the steering wheel and you have to drive yourself to the destination, but I'm going to know how to get around the roadblocks, avoid traffic, all this stuff. I've been there. I've had 1,000 pounds on my back. So, I think that it's really important that people like understand when you do need to kind of like, you know, earn your keep and you kind of put your hours in and all this stuff. But at a certain point, it's like you do deserve to be compensated for your time. You do deserve to like potentially charge a premium and all these things. But there are certain things that I will do because I do truly care about the community. I do truly care about the people. And just understanding like, and we can kind of get into like, what is like kind of the moneymaker for like the business and what are you kind of doing to like enhance the community? Because there's a lot of stuff that I do that it's like, it doesn't make sense maybe from a business standpoint, but you're building the relationship, you're building trust, you are kind of adding to,
and it does, but it might not just be, I put in X time and I get Y money back. Like you're investing in the business, like you're getting a return from those events and from the handling. People see that and appreciate it, and it comes back. It pays back to the business.
Sure,
but it's more strategic. That's what I mean. I think by valuing your time at a premium and being more strategic is that you don't have to think about tactically like, okay, I have to be in the gym from 9 to 10.
Correct.
Because then I can coach my 6 clients and I get you know, my $300 a month of revenue. Like you can have that still running and then go do, you know, handle an event or you go to a networking event and that kind of thing. So it's strategic in the sense that it's time invested that you're not expecting immediate.
So this is let me I think this will kind of put a bow on it with this. So I think that like when I'm thinking about like my time and its value, what if I'm going to be at an event or if I'm going to be in the gym floor, right? So one of the things I know like Matt's talked about a lot where it's like there's a lot of downtime when you're training, right? Like you might only be training for like actually physically under the bar for like 10 minutes, like it's not a lot of time, right? So there's a lot of potential wasted time there. But so that's like something to consider. I could be at an event handling 10 or 20 people. I'm also, you know, building relationships with the officials, the meet directors, the host gym, and I'm trying to have an impact on them too. And so like now I'm like impacting like, and maybe they impact someone else. Maybe they have a good experience with me or like they learn something or at Underground Strength Con, you know, I have these conversations with people and maybe I teach them something. So if I'm teaching another trainer, for example, like one of the things I loved, I might have told you. So a couple of months ago, I did a clinic with the Air Force. There's an Air Force base in Dover, Delaware here. So like if I potentially teach like one of these guys like how to deadlift properly and then maybe he shows his buddy and then maybe so like there's this like kind of domino effect and so I think about like sometimes it's like, do I want to go to this event? But it's like, what is the impact that I could have here versus just, I'm going to add another hour to my, to my schedule or whatever. And then is there something that I could say, or can I have the same impact potentially from my computer screen? Can I have the same impact giving someone an audio message? Can I have the same impact? And then, like you said, you're kind of freed up. So that's kind of like how I think things. If I'm like, what's the impact if I'm physically there? And some of the trips that I've been kind of making at this point. So it's like, do I need to go to Arnold again this year? Do I need to go? But it's like, okay, like if I could teach someone here, or if I could meet this person, and then you kind of see like where things. And sometimes things don't pan out, but it's like it's good. It's good to think about like what's like, how does this help and how does this hurt, and then what's going to be like kind of the net like results like over time. If you keep kind of, so I don't know if that like helps maybe clarify some things.
Can I ask a follow-on question to that? How do you, there's this balance between not focusing on the outcome and, you want to go to these things without expectation, maybe. But on the other hand, is there a point where you're like, I think I need to prune that or pull the weeds, as Matt would say, of this event or that thing, because it's just not really actually returning an investment? Is that something that you only do after the fact, or is it something you're calculating as you?
I think that you balance that? I think it's like with training too. Like the more you kind of do something, like you kind of start to see patterns, and then you have to kind of audit. You have to so let's say you like run 5x5 for like a while, right? And just at a certain point it's going to stop working. But then it's like, can you reset? Can you like adjust your training max? Can you add a gallon of milk a day? Can you, whatever it is, like, just like all these things you kind of figure out, like sometimes you can kind of figure out a way to make it work. Sometimes you're like, man, for whatever reason, this protocol is just like not working. So maybe you got to scrap it. You got to move on, but you kind of give it a chance. I felt like that just, for example, like in Delaware, I don't know, like it's been 3 years. I've been kind of coming down here and, and all, but we've been running meets in Delaware for 3 years. Now I kind of finally feel like they're accepting the crazy New Yorker, but it's like in my brain, I'm John Gaglione. I'm like, I've been involved with powerlifting for 20 years, but they don't give an F like who I, they just know this, I'm this crazy New Yorker that's coming into their like home turf. So, but now I have a crew of people. Now I bench 600, 595. I bench 595 and then 665 reverse bands with all locals. 3 years ago, that wouldn't have happened, but that was like now the fruits of my labor, the effort, but I'm doing these charity events. I'm networking, and then there was a lot of gym owners that were like kick rocks. But now I have a kind of a network of people because I kind of, invested in them. I helped them. I put a lot of time in, and I had to kind of like start over here. And now it's slowly kind of, it's kind of, the fruits of my labor are kind of, coming to fruition now. And so it's just good to like kind of understand that, where sometimes you have to kind of I had to take a step back and kind of audit the situation. And I'm like, I just need to spend more time. And like, I actually need to like, these people don't know who I am. They don't have a relationship with me. The people, I'm very established in New York, love me or hate me. But the people in Long Island, like they know Gaglione's strength. But people in, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, and Milton, Delaware, they don't know, like, they might know, they may have heard of, and then, I've seen Larry Wheels, and then it's like, okay, and then there's a little bit of like, okay, like this person maybe knows what they're doing, and I didn't know I thought there's people that still don't know I moved to Delaware. There's people like, I didn't, like, so like, you don't, so part of it is just, but I do think that you just have to like kind of audit yourself periodically and just kind of see. And sometimes, like I said, it's just these things like they may not, you may not see a benefit until like later on. And other people, like we mentioned Underground Strength Con a few times, like Matt Whittemere, like very much wired the same, cut from the same cloth, West Side guy, high energy. Like we're already doing stuff. We're already like, it's happening already. But like, I know here we call it slower, lower, that people are not, like, it's not that they don't operate in the same speed. I don't know if that was the case for like Strong Barbell Club in Missouri and stuff. But I know like in New York we operate at one speed, and then in Delaware it's like completely, it's on like slow mode. Yeah. So you have to kind of like meet people where they're at too, and give people a chance. But at a certain point you have to see like, okay, is this person on board? I also try to communicate very directly, and not everyone does, and sometimes it takes it takes a few times to kind of figure out, like, is this person, being honest or direct? And sometimes people just this happens with clients too. Like when they leave, is it really about money? Is it really, it's like, usually it's not, right? You have to kind of see like trust was eroded somewhere, right?
Yep.
So, and not everyone's going to be upfront with you, but, so I try to communicate directly, but not everyone is. So then you have to kind of like take a step back, try to be like an unbiased third party observer and kind of observe the situation. And then you can kind of assess, is this event worth it and whatever. And even something like with Zach, like I mentioned my wife and daughter, they just competed in USAPL. I'm like, listen, Zach, I really want to be there, but I'm gonna have to come Saturday night. And I made a little bit of a compromise, and like it was I kind of lost some sleep over it, whatever. We had a great workout with you. We had good, we made good connections with like Coach House and Matt Whittemere and all these people, and it was totally worth it. But it's like, so sometimes also being like, I think we call it like expansive thinking, and then you kind of reduce. So like you think about like, well, what if I could go to like all these events? What if I didn't have to sleep? And then you can kind of like, so you have this like maybe like more wide view, and then you can kind of condense down to like, okay, what's actually realistic, what's sustainable. But I think it's good sometimes to think about, what if I could work 24 hours a day? What if I could? And then like you have to be like kind of realistic. What if I could go to like all the powerlifting meets in my area? And then you kind of pick and choose which ones you think is going to be the highest return. So I don't know if that gives people some ideas, but that's kind of how I, I would have never thought like what, I talked about like, meeting up with the guys at Massonomics. I think will it be a worthwhile trip? I don't know. But I booked a plane ticket to South Dakota, and we'll see what happens, Aberdeen, so yeah, we'll see.
Man, like I said at the beginning, we could probably keep going on for hours.
Yeah, we'll do part two at some point.
It's been awesome. We might have to have a part two.
Part two.
Yeah, we could do, because you've touched on so many amazing points, and you've given me things to think about, helped clarify a lot of things for me, and hopefully our listeners as well. Tremendous wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate you taking the time to share with it. Hopefully this is a strategic investment that's worthwhile to you. On that note, if people want to reach out to you or talk to you more, or where can people go to find you, or invest in maybe building a relationship with you?
It's at Gaglione Strength on all the socials. Offer consultations. We have events in Delaware and New York primarily, but also expanding into California, Ohio, and Kentucky as well. The one thing I just like to kind of tell people, especially a podcast like this that's more like kind of self-development, business, those sorts of things. When you consume this information, like write down your biggest takeaway and then what's your next action, because it's great to have knowledge, but if you don't take action, it doesn't one of the things that's always challenging when you see people like on a seminar circuit, or you listen to all these podcasts, but then it's like, what do you do with it? So if something kind of resonated with you, maybe sit with it for a little bit, take some notes, maybe pull over if you're listening into the car and jot some notes, whatever it is. So I just think that's a really important thing, because I think that's, and again, I'm not always perfect, but Underground Strength is a good example where we had conversations, we set up this podcast, so it's like, stuff's happening, and maybe it'll come, maybe something will come of it, maybe not. But if you sit still, so I'll just leave you guys with this, and then I know we're getting over on time, but so one of my business mentors gave me this analogy about a shark, and basically like a shark, if it stops swimming, eventually like it will like die. So sometimes it's just circling and it's just kind of like chilling, but it's always moving. And other times it smells blood in the water and it's going to go. And you have to kind of just know like where you're at in your career. I was kind of circling for a little bit when I was getting married and stuff like that. And now like 2026, I kind of got some good energy. Things are kind of more established. I feel like more stable. And now I'm kind of smelling blood in the water. I'm going to go a little bit more aggressive in 2026. And then there might be a season of life where I'm kind of coasting a little bit, but you're always moving. I think that's like kind of one thing I'll leave you with, if hopefully that helps some people.
Well, and I will leave the audience with one action to include on that list to write down. Schedule a call with me at turnkey.coach/disco, and we can get on a call, talk about Turnkey Coach and whether or not it would be a good fit for your business. or like we talked about with John, how to incrementally incorporate it into your gym, starting with could be just your in-person folks and then training them up and moving them online. You don't have to just go 100% online. You don't have to have a big social media thing where you're convincing people that you're going to coach them online. It's a coaching platform. It can help you today and unlock a ton of potential down the road. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you again, John, and we'll see you next time on the Business of Coaching Workshop.